Hello everyone, welcome back to video number 5 or 6, I don't know. I think it's 5, 4, 5, 6, I don't know. Anyways, so the last video we showed you guys how to do some lofts with the fuselage and the canopy bulge on the top of the XP56 Black Bullet. This video basically going to just follow along, basically do some more of that along the cockpit bulge. As you'll see here on the screen, I have actually deleted the cockpit loft that we originally did. The reason I did that is because the additional data for a couple of stations towards the trailing edge and the front of that bulge, I wanted to loft the whole thing as a single entity instead of multiple ones. So I deleted the loft and I deleted the outline guidelines that we had put in as well. So towards the end of the last video, I said I had found some additional station data for these aft couple and then this forward one right here, because these are actually XYZ curves, and I had to do some secretarying, which is basically I had to make some spreadsheets. So I made some spreadsheets with that data, and like I said, you have an X column here, a Y column, and then a Z column. And in order for SolidWorks to use that data, it has to be saved as a text, a TXT file. If it's not a text file, it otherwise has to be a solid curve, SLD CRV file. Using Excel or OpenOffice or whatever to come up with your way of doing the spreadsheet. In this instance, I'm using my documentation that I finally did get to download, I believe, which is, here we go. This is what we were using before. For the main cross sections, you have your diagram here, your stations for where it's located, and then your X, H, Y, R1, and the R2. The R2 we don't have to worry about. That's a fillet between the top here and the bottom, and we're not worried about that fillet information just yet. And then on the second page, this is all the XYZ, the curve through XY points that we had to come up with. And here you see it has the X and then a Y above your reference line. So, and then another radius here for the fillet. And you'll notice this ML crew nacelle, that's the mold line of the crew nacelle, otherwise the outside surface of the skin. And you'll see here the little asterisk, 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 all these at this point right here, this X1498, Y1975, that point should be coincident with the outside surface of the crew nacelle or the fuselage. In other words, it should meet our fuselage cross section that we drew. So I know I've got a lot of data for this that 99% of you guys will probably never be able to find for whatever airplane you're modeling. That's why in the very video number 1 I showed you how I typically do things, where you import a 3 view. The better the 3 views, or the more 3 views you can get, the better. You import the 3 view as a photo, you kind of suppress it a little bit so it's more transparent, adjust the transparency of it. And then if you have cross sections, whether it be from a plastic model, it comes from your 3 views, you can then use your cross sections to trace a sketch over them. So here I'm using all these XYZ points and all this like 100% accurate data. You don't have to have this type of information to make a solid model. You can just make your own sketches, even if you're just making something out of the curiosity of your brain, your mind, and you want to make up your cross sections as you go. You can do that. You don't have to have data like I'm showing you in these videos. No matter how, whether you trace a picture, you just do a shape that looks about right according to a picture, it doesn't matter as long as you get these cross sections. This isn't the only way to do things. It's just how I'm showing you how I'm doing it for this particular model. So now that I've got all of these stations in, you'll notice there's this one little oddball vertical one. This is just so I have a reference point for the lower guideline and then the upper guideline, because this here is a very forward point of this canopy. So right here, at this point right here, that is where the canopy meets the fuselage, and it doesn't go any further forward. So this is just a reference line for me. And honestly, that could really just be a center line, but I should probably change that. Otherwise, I'll forget about it. Like, oh, why is that like that? Okay, there we go. Now it's just a center line, so it's not that won't be too big of a deal. Okay, so we got all that done. Now the next thing we need to do is I have one station left right here, 224.95. I need to bring in a curve, the XYZ curve from our documentation showing here, this one right here is 224.95. If you look at the previous one, 224.95 is right here. It's not quite at the end of it, but it gives you a lot of good data right here. Here's station 224.95. So there's really no structure back here. This from 224.95 back here, they're just saying, hey, you know what? This is probably just skin that was left overhanging this station to give us a nice 0.05 radius to trailing edge. So because of that, we're not going to be able to draw anything further back here. We'll have to kind of make this up, and I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that yet. But when I do figure it out, I'll make sure to undo it and then explain it to you guys. All right, so for station 224.95, what we got to do is we need to come up here into features. Whoops, I do that quite often for whatever reason. Now it's gonna, there we go. Let's do that. So we're gonna come up here to features, curves through X, Y, Z points. And then it brings up this little pop-up window. We're here, browse, find your text file. Here, we'll click on it and then click open. And what you see is it draws you a really interesting looking curve. One thing that is kind of odd about this particular one that I'll show you here in the side view, the stations right here, 224.95, X0, Y, nothing. So there's just a line through it. So there is either no data for that, or they don't know what the data is. I honestly don't know. And it's kind of weird. Because I'm not exactly sure what I should put there now at this point. Because it doesn't really give you any good information. Like here we got 3487. Okay, here we go. Station 224.95. This is where some original engineering data, you got to kind of scratch your head and figure out what they were thinking when they when they did this stuff, because it can be pretty nerve-wracking. So we don't have that dimension here. Oddly enough, you would think they would put that there. I think the reason why they didn't put that there is because of this rounded radius. It's actually slightly off. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to kind of fudge it a little bit here. We're kind of extrapolate. So here we're working at station 224.95. We know that this trailing edge extension here has a radius of 8 inches. And then we know 3487 is to the center line of that radius. So if we do that 3487, and it's too early for me to be doing math like that in my head. Whoops. Fat fingered it again. So 3487 plus the 8 will give us 42.87. So what we can do now is we can come back to SolidWorks. And right here in Y, we can just adjust, double click in that box, put 4287. And hey, there we go. Now our curve, and you see in the Y, looks significantly nicer than it did. And then we'll just click OK. Now we have our curve for station 224.95. So rename it 224.95 canopy curve. And then I always bring it back up here under the same plane and skirt curve area that we used for the fuselage. So there we go. Now what we need to do is we need to select plane 224.95 and we want to sketch on it. Then we can select our canopy curve, go to convert entities, and immediately you see it becomes a black line that we can now use. But now it's on the wrong side compared to everything else. So we'll click on that curve, do mirror entities, come to mirror about, click in the box to highlight it, and then up here beside our file name, hit the little arrow, and we want to mirror it about the right plane. And now you see the yellow line is where it will come. If you wanted to make a copy where you had it on both sides, you could also do that just by checking the copy box, but we don't want that. So now we're going to hit the green check mark, And ta-da, we have that. Now we need to make this a closed shape like all the rest. So we'll come up here and we'll sketch a line. Come down here, go across it, and there we go. And you notice I didn't do it vertically just because there's a whole lot of lines there and it's hard to keep up with it. So I'm going to select this bottom point and then the origin. I'm going to make them vertical. Same thing here. And then I'm going to select the line that's supposed to be vertical. And we're going to do that vertical. And then this line here, I want to be horizontal, which it already is. So we're good to go. Now we can scroll out, or zoom out, I should say. We can skew it a little bit and then move over. And now we know from our documentation, wrong one, also the wrong one, that right here, this point, 224.95, the very bottom, asterisk is coincident with the mode line. So based off of that, we can select that point, hold our control key down, select the station mode line there, and say, hey, coincident. And now you see we got the little green box with the 2 lines and the yellow or the green circle saying, hey, okay, we're good, we're coincident. We can exit that. We can also name this 224.95 canopy sketch. And then we're going to leave that one right here. You notice here on my line, I got all my canopy sketches all down here, but then I have all the lines up here. The more I have worked with SolidWorks, the more I have found that I like to try and keep things organized when it comes to how everything is over here in your properties bar, your properties window here. That way it just makes things a little bit quicker and easier to find. Or if you have to go through and change something, you know, say, hey, fuselage loft, all the fuselage sketches are going to be there. Hey, canopy loft, all the canopy sketches are going to be there. They automatically go there. It's just sometimes if you decide, hey, I don't want to do the fuselage loft just yet, you delete it, things get exploited all over the place, and then you got to like scroll up and down to find them. All right. So there we have that. Now the fuselage loft we will no longer need to be able to see that sketch. So we can just come in here, expand the fuselage loft, right click it, and hit the eyeball with a line through it to close it or to hide it. All that's done. We'll save it again. And now here we are back to basically all the cross sections for the canopy bulge. And the front part here, I hate doing cockpit or canopies and cockpits because this last little bit is always such a pain. It would have been super nice if there was at least one more station right here to give you that curve information. But for now, we'll work with what we have. I've got some more documentation coming, so maybe we'll get lucky, and in that documentation, we will find that there actually is a couple of more stations in here. But for now, we're going to go back to our right plane, and we're going to sketch on that, just regular sketch, and we're going to do, again, just splines. And I'm just going to spline everywhere over the point here. Hit escape when you get to the end. Say, hey, I'm done with that one. Come down. We'll do another spline down here at the bottom because we know we're going to need it for our guide curves for the loft. And you'll notice all these little dashed lines that keep popping up. That just means the point that we're putting in is directly under the point from the spline above it. To the end, hit escape to exit. Next thing we'll do, again, use your little arrow keys here. I'm right key twice, down key once. That kind of twists and skews it for you. Hit this point. We want that point there. Those are going to be coincident. Same with this one and that one. Those are going to be, this time you see it says merge, which is good enough for this one. That's going to be coincident. This one will be coincident. You guys are going to love me here. Coincident 6,000 times. Or coincident. It depends on where you're from. Hey, whatever. Make fun of me all you want. This is when, if I wasn't lazy, I would go through and I would just fast forward this video through a lot of this stuff to where you guys didn't have to listen to me mumble on about whatever. But I don't really like editing videos. And again, every time I'm selecting one point, I'm holding the control button to select another point. So many relations to add, but hey, we're getting closer. This thing should be pretty dang cool when it's done. The plan for now is I'm designing two of these actually. One of them will be at 1/8 scale, which is about a 63-inch wingspan, I believe. And the other will be about a 1/4 scale, which is around 125 or 130 inches, somewhere in that range. The small ones, I've got a Hymax electric counter-rotating setup that I'm going to plan on using. All right, there we go. You see, it's pretty dang close, but there's an oddball right here. This one point compared to our documentation. You see we're 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. So station, whatever this one is. 202.95 is a little tall. So because of station 202.95, 39.87, let's come back over here to 202.95. We'll do our cockpit curve. I'm going to exit out of this sketch for now. And I'm going to come to our cockpit curve again at 202.95, right click it, edit the feature, and 0.1, 39.87. And according to our documentation, that is correct. These being all old microfiche things, it's very difficult. So 202.95, we want to go to, can my computer play nicely? Here we go, 202.95. So you go right here, 39.87 or 39.37. It's most likely 87 because I don't believe this one would be almost a 1/4 of an inch lower than the next one out. So as you can see, even the best of data is sometimes not entirely accurate, because this stuff has been transposed and modified. Let's see, this one had data added in 1942 at 19625 and 201.75. So two of the stations that aren't on the side view have been added to it. And who knows how many revisions it went through before that. It doesn't say. But yeah. So what we'll have to do is I'm going to come through here. I'm just going to lower that curve. If I can now find it. Here we go. 202.95, the cockpit curve. I'm going to drop the top down 1/10 of an inch at 0.1 and 1/10 of an inch at 0.2. Whoops. Okay. And now, when we come back to that, I should believe it will update it, but maybe not. Nope. So there's that, and then here's our new 202.95. You can see it did not update it, but you can also see how it threw off that a lot. So whatever we did to change that did not work how I wanted it to. So we'll come back in here and we'll modify that curve. Oh, well, that's why I didn't lower it 1/10 of an inch. I lowered it 3/4 of an inch. So it was 87. We want it 77. And the one below was 56. We want 46. Okay. That's a little bit better, but you can see it kind of knocks the curve off just a little bit. Kind of puts more of a point to it. Which, let's see, if we update the canopy sketch now, will that update? No, it won't. All right. So we'll delete this one. Click on our convert entities. We're going to convert our curve. Click OK. Mirror that curve along or about the right plane. There we go. This point and that point can go there. This point, that point can go there. And now we need the fuselage location at that point. Which is already coincided. All right, so there we go. And now it's going to yell at us because our spline point's there. See, we got a little thing saying, hey, we got a problem here. And it's because of this here. The relation that we had is now gone. So we just click this point, delete that relation, move it out of the way, hold the control, zoom into the new point while you hold the control button down and say, hey, coincide it there. Zoom out. That's a little bit better, but it's still a little high. I think we're going to have to come down probably another 1/4 of an inch on that one. And this is where you get into the back and forth, back and forth, back and forth a good bit. So now we're about 25 minutes in. So while I figure this out and get it looking just right, I want to end video number 5 and 6 or 5 or 6, whatever this one is here. And once I get it figured out, I'll bring you back and we'll come up and we'll get this thing all lofted and good to go. So until then, hope you enjoyed. See you next time.